Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Megha Sharma. The US President Donald Trump has now linked the ongoing war in Ukraine to global oil prices, urging Saudi Arabia and the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries to lower the crude prices as a means to bring an end to the conflict. In a virtual address to executives at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Trump minced no words as he accused the Saudis and OPEC of sustaining Russia's military offensive in Ukraine by maintaining high oil prices. His remarks follow a conversation he had with the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, asking for a $1 billion investment. The price of crude has fallen by 1% after Trump spoke at the WEF. Meanwhile, a day before, the US President Donald Trump had asked Russia to end the ridiculous war, and Kremlin spokesperson has announced that President Putin is ready for a call with Donald Trump on mutually acceptable terms. Moscow is now waiting for a word from Washington, D.C. However, Kremlin has rejected Trump's claim that the war in Ukraine was tied to high prices in oil. Now, instead, he has said that the conflict was based on threats to Russia's national security and a complete refusal of the Americans and Europeans to list Russia's concerns. Let's start this conversation. It's an interesting upheaval that is potentially going to take place with regards to the growth of global economy and the share of the global crude prices that play in how America functions, whether there is going to be the end of the Ukraine-Russia war if the crude prices are brought down, and whether Trump will actually be able to persuade OPEC, that is led by Saudi Arabia, to slash crude prices. Joining me on the telecast is Sharad Kohli. Thank you very much. And Dr. Kohli, how do you view this appeal that has been made by Donald Trump right after he spoke in the address that was made at Davos? The crude prices have dropped by 1%, but it all depends now on Saudi Arabia and OPEC to listen to Donald Trump to reduce their crude prices. But how is it advantageous for OPEC to heed to Donald Trump's advice?
Good evening, Megha. Good evening to my fellow panelists and, of course, the NewsX viewers. Well, I think President Trump is very, very direct in talking. He doesn't mince words that we all know since 2016 when he first came to power. And, ever since he's assumed presidency, he has been not mincing any words. He's been very direct, very categorical, very straightforward. Now, coming down to what he said, I really don't think OPEC is going to react as quickly as he would expect and slash off the crude prices. I also do not feel that the cause of Russia-Ukraine war was oil prices. I also do not agree that had Saudi Arabia probably reduced the prices, or OPEC had reduced the prices, the war would not have happened. I really don't think so. So it's more out of optimism. It's more of his own thought process. Could have been one of the reasons, one of the secondary reasons, I would say, but definitely could not have been one of the prime reasons. And as far as oil prices coming down by $1 or a couple of dollars after, well, crude oil market across the world is very, very speculative. It moves on the basis of demand supply, and a lot of it moves on the basis of the news flow which happens. So a statement given by somebody in the position of POTUS obviously has an impact as far as speculations are concerned, because there's a lot of forward trading or futures trading which happens in the crude oil prices. So we cannot take that trend in crude prices to be sustainable for a very long time, either on the upside or the downside. But having said that, I think this also sends a message that President Trump, because of his constant threats of tariffs and imposition of tariffs on various countries, is worried about the fact that it can again go back to that inflation era which America was facing since COVID. So he's worried about that if oil becomes expensive, obviously it will have an inflationary impact, although America produces a lot of oil, but not as much as OPEC does. So he's worried about inflation. He's worried about the fact that the economy may go topsy-turvy. I have a feeling, Megha, that every announcement being made by President Trump, I was also hearing him on a virtual appearance with a World Economic Forum. I think every statement that he's making is with regard to, it is smelling of economy, it is smelling of business, it is smelling of the fact that he is a true businessman, and all his decisions, everything is related to economy, economy, and economy. I think everything, even the arresting the immigrants and deporting them, because he doesn't want pressure to happen on the American economy. He doesn't want his infrastructure to come under pressure. As far as OPEC is concerned and his invite to Saudi Arabia to come and invest in America, well, he's been inviting people across the globe. Even in the World Economic Forum speech, he categorically said, come and invest, make things in America, or face tariff.
Yeah.
The tariff word is being spoken, Mega, more often than not. And I have a feeling that this word tariff will lose its steam if it is spoken too often, and if it is being used as a tool or a threat constantly across the world, Mega.
Okay, I'm going to get in Patikrit Pain and talking particularly about crude prices. And there you have it, where Donald Trump puts out his executive order saying that he declares it is going to be national energy emergency that is going to be declared. He's declared that. He's rolled back all environmental curbs on on energy infrastructure, pushing for entrepreneurs to drill, to ensure that there is increased oil production, increased gas production. But do you think it is then going to be a complicated affair for Donald Trump administration to figure out? Because on one hand, when it is demanding that the global crude prices be brought down, what is the incentive for domestic players in the oil market in America to pay heed? Because when global prices are going to be brought down, automatically the domestic prices are going to be brought down, their profits are going to shrink.
So, Mega, a small correction, my surname is Pine, not Pain.
Okay, yes.
But anyways, with permission of Sharadji, I want to say this. Sharadji has been very courteous in his words. I would rather say and with his permission, I want to say this. Trump, whatever he is doing, it's on the borderline of, sorry for my word, it's stupidity. I'll tell you the reason. It's like somebody going around with a big stick, the policeman, if he constantly says that I have the big stick in my hand, beware, beware, it's not going to work. In terms of economics, it's like the law of diminishing marginal utility. You keep on threatening everyone with that tariff, it's not going to work at all. Let me tell you something, very fundamentally, which everyone can understand. OPEC produces 40% of the annual crude oil production of the world. The rest 60% is not under the control of OPEC. Russia is one of the largest producer of oil in the world. How would OPEC compensate for that? It cannot be done. Simply, it cannot be done. And at the same time, look at this. This is the ridiculousness of this approach. Trump does not want to stop the war, perhaps by preventing or stopping the supplying of arms to Ukraine.
Right.
If the day the supply of weapon systems to Ukraine stops, the war stops. But perhaps Trump doesn't want to antagonize the military-industrial complex, which is sending weapon systems to Ukraine. And on the contrary, he wants the price of oil to come down. Now the problem is this: you can keep on putting tariff. You can threaten everyone with sanctions. You have a de-dollarized trade happening in other currencies between Saudis and Russia, between Saudis and China. And you are doing exactly what Biden did in terms of pushing countries away from United States and creating and consolidating this formation of BRICS. And secondly, what Trump is trying to do is not something novel. It has been tried by Biden also. Biden, when the war started, he also pressurized Saudi Arab and the OPEC under a law called NOPEC. No Oil Producing Exporting Cartel Act. There is an act of United States. Saudis gave 2 hoots to them.
Yeah.
They did not increase the production of oil. So prices didn't come down. So it has to be understood that Trump has become the president of United States for various reasons. I think many people are happy because we have been tired of this regime change and wokeism thing that was going on in the world. But if Trump thinks that he has become the president of the world, then there is a problem. There is a world, there is a market beyond United States also. And because of this idiosyncrasies, even the strategic partners of United States, like India, have been compelled to have an options ready in a de-dollarized or a diversified environment where I'm thinking of alternates. Why would you all the time threaten people with tariffs? You can say, please invest in my country. It's a beautiful country. Invest. You're telling to the Saudis, either you invest or you live with a tariff. Yeah, what is this? This is
Okay.
not going to work.
Okay,
It
all
doesn't
right.
work.
That's an important point raised. And Dr. Kohli, I'm going to once again focus on what are the incentives for OPEC and Saudi Arabia to reduce oil prices and increase production of crude.
No incentive maker, because OPEC countries, they survive on oil. OPEC countries, it's their bread and butter basically. For OPEC countries, there is no incentive. In fact, the way President Trump announced that either you come and invest, or I'm going to impose tariffs, and his request to OPEC, I don't know if it's a request or it's a directive. I agree with Patikrit that he should not assume himself as president of the world. He's the president of the United States, and there is a lot of world which survives, sustains, functions very very efficiently without United States of America. I think he's under the impression that what US says governs the world. He's probably under the impression that US, being the most powerful country around the world, the rest of the world has to agree to what he says. And I think there is a word in Hindi, Mega, it's called spashtvadi. He's being too much of a spashtvadi. He's been talking a little too frankly, I would say. In the world of diplomacy, in the world of when heads of state talk, when they give their speeches, you have to be a little diplomatic while speaking. You cannot always underline a statement by a threat. If you keep underlining your statements by a threat, or which sounds like a threat, if it's not a direct threat, I really don't think diplomacy works. I can tell you with conviction, Mega, that a lot of heads of state and a lot of countries who've got very close relations with India, with America, including India for that matter, are now thinking and rethinking their strategies as to how to deal with America. Because if President Trump does what he says, but I have also, at the same time, it reminds me of something. I really don't think whatever President Trump has been saying over the last few days since he became the president, if he will be able to execute all of that, because the practicality of implementing what you are saying is far away from what you are saying. For example, if you keep imposing tariffs on rest of the world on everything that you say, what is going to happen to America in terms of inflation? Can America manufacture everything on which President Trump has been announcing tariffs? The answer is no. Americans cannot manufacture everything. They have to depend on countries like China, India, and the rest of the world. So I think President Trump, to a certain extent,
but then he's also tapered down, because while he was making the speech, he went ahead and once again said that Xi Jinping is a smart guy. He said that I would like to approach China with a friendly gesture. I want to be friends with Xi Jinping, and I would rather not impose tariffs on China.
Yeah, because these are the contradictory statements. One day he says, I'm going to impose tariffs, and he imposes tariff. The other day he says, he's a smart man. The way we talk sitting in a drawing room, oh, that guy is a nice guy, and we must call and speak to him. We must call him on coffee and speak to him. At the diplomatic level, Megha, I feel your gestures, your language, whatever you say, there has to be consistency, first of all.
Okay.
And then you have to be very careful while wording what you're saying. So I think contradicting statements coming, it's hardly surprising from President Trump. He's very unpredictable. That we've been knowing him for a very long time. But we will definitely see a different kind of Trump this time. God knows how the countries will strategize themselves to deal with America. That is going to be a bigger problem, because you don't know next day what he does.
Okay.
You do something today, next day, suddenly it's the other way around.
Yeah, I asked that question before, and I would like to ask it once again from you to you. Again, these are two contradictory policies that Trump at this point of time is wanting to implement. There is, on one hand, he is wanting OPEC to reduce the crude prices, and on the other hand, he is incentivizing oil producing companies to drill more oil and gas within America. So the question being that if global prices are going to fall, how are oil producing companies in America going to be incentivized or persuaded to drill oil, to sell oil?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, yes.
Well, that's precisely what I meant. You got the neck of the whole matter. That's precisely what I mean. The statements do not conquer sometimes also, Megha, with principles of economics and principles of business. Sometimes they do not conquer because on one side you tell them come and invest, on the other side you tell them increase the production. On the next day you tell them this is causing war. This is the cause of war. Well, I can tell you that OPEC countries, they have been, the way oil prices have been decided over last few years, they are very, very businesslike. They really do not bother about how the world is reacting. They don't bother about how the world is going to be impacted. They are simply and simply looking at their bottom lines. Let's talk of the Indian context. 87% of our oil, Mega, we are importing right now. So if what President Trump is saying turns out to be true and actually the oil prices start dropping, that is good for India. But if it doesn't, then what happens? And then what happens with the oil which India is importing from Russia at the point of time? So, it's a very, very complex situation, I feel, which President Trump's statement is creating around the world. And I'm more worried than relaxing or probably feeling more happy after President Trump has taken presidency, because the situation he's going to make, these statements will make situation very, very complex. And in the diplomatic circles, Mega, at this point of time, I can tell you absolutely surely that the diplomats, the heads of state, right now are strategizing, re-strategizing as to how to deal with America, which
Okay.
statement to take on the face, and how to really start conducting themselves as far as America is concerned. Mega.
Okay, Patikrit, coming to you, and you raised that very important point about Ukraine-Russia war and the promises that he had been making before he won the election are completely contradictory to the statement he has made. He has said that if you if you reduce the oil prices, this will allow for revenues generated by Russia to reduce, which will then further reduce its capacity to fight the war against Ukraine. Because and on the other hand, before he won the election, during the campaigning period, he continued to say that I warn you, I'm going to withdraw the military and financial support that is provided to Ukraine to end the war. He said that he is not going to be part of NATO until the NATO allies decide to put in more funds. A statement has come from the NATO chief today that, the NATO members, every single one of them, will have to provide a provision of 2%, over 2% of financial military aid to build the NATO corpus. Now, these are contradictory statements. Which one do we believe?
So first and foremost, I think there is a problem with understanding of what is happening in the Russia war. I think the Trump administration would take a little time to gauge that, or perhaps they know, but they're still making these statements. See, Russia is too big a country in terms of the repository of commodities and minerals that they have. It's so big that it cannot be ignored. So you cannot expect that I will create a world which will shun Russia and the rest will compensate for the things that they produce. And thus Russia will be booted out and thus they will have no more money, the war will stop. That is not how it's going to work. The Biden administration tried for 3 years, but not just oil, you have gas, you have commodities like iron ore, you have fertilizers, you have wheat production, you have edible oil, everything comes from Russia globally, not just for India. That's one part of it. Secondly, look at the delusional aspect of it. It is true that in Saudi Arab, the cost of oil extraction is very low. So they can have a separate negotiation with Saudi Arab, but it can have an incremental reduction. Now, what happens if Trump is looking for reducing the price of oil to say $30 a barrel, $40 a barrel? What happens is this: the shale oil extraction in United States becomes unviable because shale oil extraction is very expensive. Then whatever Trump is pivoting on, that they have the oil of their own, it's going to go away. It's going to get bust. Secondly, it also has to be understood, as you rightly mentioned, the hedge funds completely loses their interest in the oil market. For India, it is good both ways. If it comes down to 30%, the $30, $40, it's good for us. But in the long run, it has its impact because a lot of people of India who work in Middle East will have to come back because the companies will shut down. The other aspect of NATO is this. Look, Trump wants to have the cake and eat it too. He doesn't, now it seems that he doesn't want to do away with NATO, but he wants everyone else to contribute money. The rest of the European countries will say, boss, you wanted the war to happen. Now you want us to pay also. We have already given so much of weapon systems to Ukraine that our own attrition reserve war vested reserve of our own armies is at a precariously low stage. So I don't think any of these European economies are in a position to contribute 3, 4, 5% more to the NATO budget. That will not happen. So Trump is trying to create a scenario where he still believes that the whole world requires America. What he is forgetting that America also requires the rest of the world. That is the problem he has. If he imposes sanctions or tariffs to that extent on China, China will invariably suffer. But inflation in United States will also go up.
Okay.
The American economy, the American companies, just my last point. The strength of America comes from the strength of its corporations. The corporations tremendously depend on China and other countries in terms of cost competitiveness. Are they going to shift manufacturing to United States because of some tax break? It's not going to happen. It's for various factors. What will be the basic salary in United States? It's probably far higher than what it is in China, what it is in India, what it is in Vietnam. The Americans will not work for 12 hours a day, 15 hours a day. So there are fundamental dynamics which somewhere Trump is missing. Maybe he'll realize that today United States cannot control the world as he thinks he has been able to control the
now very specific question, and that deals with the practicality of the entire drill baby drill policy that Trump at this point of time is propagating and wants to implement. And Sharat Kohli, how does one understand? Can there be statistics that can be put out? Does America even have the potential to drill enough oil and gas and export it to the world? Do they have enough oil reserves to become an alternative to OPEC?
Well, they do wish to be so, but the fact of the matter is they cannot, because as Pathikrit rightly mentioned, shale extraction is very, very complicated and it is expensive, what America depends on. So America knows, that's what I was saying in the beginning, that they forget that they will also be harmed if the prices go up. The fact of the matter is, Megha, that American economy is in a very, very precarious situation. 27 trillion dollars, probably 26 trillion dollars is the GDP. The debt on American economy at this point of time is about 36 to 37 trillion dollars. They are adding about 1 trillion to one in every 12 months to 18 months. So they are in a very, very precarious financial situation. And President Trump, I'll be very surprised if he doesn't know about it. Obviously, he knows about it, sitting in the administration. He's the main signatory to the debt after the Senate. So I think President Trump will have to tread a path where he makes the world understand what exactly is he wanting to do.
Yeah.
Is he wanting the investors to come and manufacture here, which is not possible. I agree with Pathikrat. I mean, the cost of production in America is so high. Land, labor, machinery, everything is very high. So people will not be afford. Whether he wants to impose tariffs everywhere, whether he wants to control inflation in the country, whether he wants his country's balance sheet to improve, I think he has to be very clear. And at this point of time, of just a few days into presidency, I think there is more of confusion than anything else, Megha.
Okay, joining me also on the telecast is Professor Madhav Nalapad. And very straightforward question. Why do you think there has been a complete policy shift in how Donald Trump wanted to tackle the Ukraine-Russia war before he won the election? And after that, after becoming the president of America, and when he goes out and gives statements like, if crude oil prices are reduced, the war in Ukraine will automatically end. The other side of the argument being that before the elections took place, before he won the elections, he continued to say time and again that he is going to withdraw military and financial support to NATO, and NATO needs to pay more funds to the corpus, to the NATO corpus, for it to then sustain a war in Ukraine. So earlier his idea was that if you pull away the military and financial support from Ukraine, the war will automatically end. And on the other side, he talks about how petroleum prices need to rise so that Russia does not have the revenues and thereby will not be able to sustain the war.
Look, I'd like to make one thing absolutely clear, which is that so far as Ukraine is concerned, Trump has asked the NATO countries, basically the EU, to raise their defense spending. His earlier target was about 2%. Now it is 5%. So he wants them to more than double from 2% to 5%. Now, whether it's going to happen or not, I have no idea. But the fact is that, as Sharath very correctly said, I think a reality check is going to come. And I think he's going to understand the limits of presidential power in a democratic country. For one thing, if he creates a mess and there's a high inflation and there are huge logistical difficulties, frankly, the Ukraine war is a nightmare. Spending money on it is a waste of money. I don't think Trump is going to waste money anymore on Ukraine. He's threatening China, I'm sorry, Russia with tariffs if they don't stop the war in Ukraine. The fact is, Russia doesn't depend on the United States anymore. The United States imports almost zero from Russia. So where's the question of Russia suffering if tariffs are imposed on exports that are zero? So I think, on all these matters, he's going to get a reality check very, very soon.
Okay.
And very soon, he's going to get the facts and figures, maybe in about 3 months, I would say at most. And then he is going to tailor his policies to reality. Although from his words, I'm not very sure, but that will be tailored to reality.
Professor
But
Nalapat,
certainly,
Professor
what
Nalapat,
he's willing-
yeah, the question being, he continued to say, even in his presidential first speech after he was inaugurated, said he wants to be the global unifier and peacemaker. And he had spoken time and again that how he is going to come to power and he is going to end the war in Ukraine and Russia. He also took credit of the ceasefire that has now been negotiated in Gaza. Do you think Trump has the ability and the aptitude to end the war in Ukraine?
Well, about Gaza, I can tell you that I think Hamas is now very worried about Trump coming, and so is Hezbollah, that he will multiply the assistance to Israel. I don't think there are going to be very many limits, if any, on the military assistance given to Israel by the United States under Trump. I don't think so. As far as Ukraine is concerned, he does want the war to end, frankly. And the fact is, the Russians, after having gone through so much, they will end the war when they are ready to end the war. And as far as China is concerned, please look at the security peaks that he has had. Look at Ratcliffe, who's just been confirmed. Look at Marco Rubio, who's just been confirmed. Look at Tulsi Gabbard, who's on the path to confirmation. Look at all these people, and you will find one factor, all of them, which link all of them. They're all China hawks. Now, Trump has chosen a team that is completely filled with China hawks. So all this peace, and in fact, let me say that peace comes through strength. If your adversary is afraid of attacking you, your adversary will refrain. If China is afraid of an attack, if there is going to be an attack, let's say on Taiwan, then there will be a situation where they will not dare do so. Trump has made various statements at various points in time. You can pick and choose which statement to take seriously and which not to. But the reality is that there are economic realities and economic facts. And one thing about petroleum, he'll have to find a way to ensure that fracking takes place and is not going to be through higher oil prices, because then US prices are going to be unaffordable.
Correct.
The fact is, oil is a declining asset. In a few years from now, less and less people are going to depend on oil, and more others will depend on alternative energy. So unless the oil-producing countries sell their oil as soon as they can do it, I can tell you, in the long run, that oil is just going to lie under the ground. No one's going to buy it, Megha.
Okay, all right. I have as much time to discuss about this topic, this development. I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast, and thanks for watching NewsX.